Would the Atlanta Braves consider bringing back Marcell Ozuna this offseason? It's not an automatic no. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Tuesday, August 12th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, BravesToday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. I want to talk about this Mets series that starts tonight. I legitimately think Atlanta can put the nail in the coffin that is the 2025 New York Mets signs of life. We'll get to that in the third segment. But first, I want to talk about Marcell Ozuna because I was asked over by a paid subscriber over on BravesToday.com if I would consider bringing back Marcell Ozuna next year. And it comes from a comment that a conversation Jake Mastriani and I had on the Braves postcast on Sunday after Marcell finished his fantastic weekend against Miami. And believe it or not, I don't think it's an automatic no about Atlanta possibly bringing back Marcell Ozuna on a short-term deal. So let's talk about why Ozuna would say yes and why the Braves would say yes. And then let's talk about the flip side of that, why both sides would say no, and what ultimately I suspect will happen. So when you're kind of looking at Marcell Ozuna, you have to kind of break it into different buckets. There was the Marcell Ozuna you had prior to the hip injury. You only got 14 games of that guy. But he hit .326 with a .500 on base and a .565 slug. 3 homers, 16 walks to 16 strikeouts in 14 games, scored 9 runs. And that's a continuation of who he was last year. Okay, let's back up even farther. 2023, he had that terrible first month. He went into that series in Miami on May 2nd, hitting .085 with a .397 OPS. And then he fixed it. From that point on, the rest of the year, he hit .297 with a .969 OPS. 38 additional home runs, 98 additional RBI. Finished the year at exactly 40 and 100. Was one of the best hitters in baseball. Last year, he kept that up almost the entire season. Hit .302 with a .925 OPS, was the 4th place finisher for MVP. Just absurd, right? This year, different story, okay? He gets hurt in the Tampa Bay series. He misses the Toronto series to get worked on. And from then through the start of the Kansas City series, he hits .219 with an OPS under 700. Only hits 10 homers in 80 games, drives in 34, strikes out 75 times. Not the same Marcell Ozuna, right? But since they gave him a bunch of time off, from July 13th to July 27th, 14 days, bridging the All-Star break, he starts twice. They just did not, they gave him as much rest as they could. He came in as a pinch hitter, I think, once or twice. But for the most part, he just not there. Starting with the Kansas City series, he's hit .314 with 6 homers. And he's done that despite a batting average on balls in play of only .208. 10 runs, 14 RBI, 10 walks, and 6 strikeouts. He looks like the old Marcell Ozuna. And I think the argument for Atlanta bringing him back would be the expected prices of offense in free agency, right? There's no real DH-only guys that you could maybe get at a discount except for Jock Peterson, and he had as terrible of a year as Marcell Ozuna did. His year has been atrocious with the Rangers, and he's a big platoon guy. You're not going to play him every day. Playing time is a factor here. We'll get to that. And so I think if Atlanta were to bring him back, it's a situation like the reason they would do that would be they tried to add offense in free agency and couldn't come to a deal. We heard AA kind of allude to this about the offseason. We heard AA allude to this, or I guess we heard both AA and Terry McGurk allude to this after the trade deadline. They couldn't find the value, right? They couldn't match up on a deal here. They just struggled to get the prices they wanted to pay versus the options that they had. It's entirely possible and would be entirely within character for the Braves to get into the free agency market and just feel like they were not able to find a deal that they liked to add offense. And if that's the situation, you have to either go above your price range where you're comfortable, bringing in some money from outside the organization. You might just stick with the devil you know versus the devil you don't and bring Marcell Ozuna back. They may choose to run it back and present it to him as it's a pillow deal. It's for him to get healthy and to have a full season so he can go back into the market. Because Kyle Schwarber is going to get a massive deal in free agency. He's almost a DH only at this point in his career, but he's a fantastic hitter. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. Marcell Ozuna this season has not been that. Maybe he tries to do that. And I think some of the argument why Ozuna might want to come back is that same thing, right? He knows this team. He's been part here for 5 seasons now. I'm sorry, 6 seasons now. He's been here for 6 seasons now, 2020 through 2025. And he knows the clubhouse knows him, and they love him. And I do think that there is something to be said about the familiarity, right? For a couple reasons. One, he's going to have an off-season surgery. The expectation is that he's going to have have his hip surgically repaired. Maybe he prefers to ease back into playing in an organization he knows, with a medical staff that he knows, versus a new team's medical staff. The other side of this for Marcell Ozuna, the comfort I don't think can be overstated, right? We have to acknowledge these aren't just these are human beings as well. We all prioritize being comfortable when everything's equal. We prioritize being comfortable over being uncomfortable, unless you're just built different. And everybody likes him. I've heard people from Michael Harris to Chris Sale talk about how Marcell Ozuna helped them with an issue, right? Something where, as a hitter, he noticed something that this pitcher was doing. And so he let them know, from my perspective, this is what I'm seeing. Chris Sale talked about that when he was having those early season struggles, that yes, pitcher Schwalbenbach and Grant Holmes grabbed the tablets, they grabbed the iPads, and were looking at all the metrics to figure it out. But Ozuna came to him as a hitter and said, here's what I'm seeing, and helped him fix it. Michael Harris has talked about the confidence boost that Marcell Ozuna has given him at times, pulling him aside and giving a word. Other guys have said those same things to us. So that comfort's there. But also, there is off-the-field concerns with Marcell Ozuna. And I don't mean that as in I expect him to have off-the-field issues now. From all indications and reports, he's in a much better place than he was earlier in his Braves tenure. But those incidents did still happen. He was arrested on a suspected domestic violence. The charges were eventually dropped. He served a 20-game suspension from Major League Baseball. Those suspensions do not require a conviction to be put into place. There are fans who have not forgiven him for that. He was also arrested for DUI. He pled no contest. He paid a $1,000 fine. There are fans who have not forgiven him for that. And that is true both in the Atlanta fan base and outside, but there is a lot more positive feelings and grace for Marcell Ozuna within the Atlanta fan base than in others. And it's entirely possible when he's looking at a place to go in free agency, he may decide, I don't want to have to bring this back up. I don't want this to need to become another conversation that I have to address. I have to talk about it to the media, or the fans are going to say something. He may not want all that to come back up. And if he returns to Atlanta, it's not going to. He's not going to have to answer for legal issues in his past in his introductory press conference in Atlanta, because there won't be one. But if he goes to Detroit, if he goes, wherever it may be, San Diego, whatever, that could come up at his first press conference, and he could have to address it. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. So there's an obvious logic to returning to Atlanta on both sides for Marcell Ozuna and for the Braves. But at the same time, there's a couple pretty clear reasons why both sides might want to move on. We'll discuss those next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chinook Seedery. Y'all thought we were done with this. We are not done with this. The absolute best sunflower seeds on the market. I have pretty much a bag a day. These little 2-ounce packages. I have pretty much one of these every single day. 8 fantastic flavors, ton of variety here. Original, lemon pepper, that's a really fun one. Jalapeno ranch, smokehouse barbecue, hatch chili, dill pickle, cinnamon toast, Parmesan and pepper. Just 8 really fun flavors. You go to ChinookSeedery.com, ChinookSeedery, ChinookSeedery.com. Promo code BRAVES gets you a couple things. If you buy a sampler pack, it's always free shipping. You get 10% off. If you are either buying a variety pack, which is the case of everything, or you build your own case, free shipping on orders over $40 and 10% off. And it supports Braves Today. Again, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about why both sides might want to move on this offseason. And I think for Marcell Ozuna, this probably comes down to both money and playing time. Okay? He got $16 million in each of the first 4 seasons of this multi-year deal. He got that same amount on the club option this year. It's 6 total seasons in Atlanta. His career earnings are now $111.47 million, minus a little bit subtracted from there because of the suspension. And actually, that's a discount over what he got in that 2020 season. He got $18 million in that 2020 season, which was itself a discount from where Atlanta paid Josh Donaldson $23 million in 2019. And that's standard, right? The shorter the deal, usually the higher the AAV. Being a 4-year deal with a club option, it makes sense it was going to be for $16 million versus $18 million, right? Not a big deal there. But I do think that a smaller annual contract value is going to be on deck for the Braves to bring him back. And this was in the original question from Aussie Fan 755, one of our premium subscribers to the Substack, when he asked me the question, would I be comfortable with $8 to $10 million a year and him playing 2 to 3 days a week? We're going to get to that second part of that in a minute. I do think you would need to discount the deal significantly because, as he suggested, as our reader suggested, it's going to be part-time playing time. And I don't think Atlanta wants to pay full freight for a part-time player. Everything that we've seen, both this season and hints about the future, Atlanta's comfortable playing both designated hitters. I'm sorry, playing both catchers in the everyday lineup, right? One at DH, one at catcher. And that's going to fluctuate, right? Can't speak for the next manager. We don't know who it's going to be. But for Snit, he plays the hot hand. It's part of why Ozuna's gotten back into the lineup recently. And Sean Murphy has lost a little bit of playing time down the stretch here. But reports are that Marcell Ozuna doesn't want a part-time role. Bob Nightingale, in the lead up to the trade deadline, remember, Marcell Ozuna had 10-5 rights. 10 years in the league, 5 years with his same team, meaning he could block any deal. And Bob Nightingale reported Ozuna was, quote, expected to approve any deal if the team guarantees him everyday playing time. Marcell might not want to come back because he feels like he's going to be a part-time player under whatever new manager it is, and he wants to play every day. And honestly, if that happens, I get it. That's a defensible position for him to have. If he thinks he's healthy and he's closer to the guy he was last year, 302 average, 39 homers, 104 RBI, he's going to want to play every day. And I get it. And for the Braves, this is kind of a similar situation here. It's a similar calculus here. If you bring back Marcell Ozuna versus making a deal at a different position for somebody else, one, less flexibility because he doesn't offer anything outside of offense. He doesn't offer base running. He doesn't offer defense. It limits your flexibility in roster construction. Something AA's told me before, not like one-to-one, but in a media availability, is Atlanta struggles to attract quality depth because they can't promise playing time to a free agent. If you don't have Marcell Ozuna in your DH spot, maybe you can promise playing time. Because there's guys at different options, like guys at different positions that you can rotate people through if you don't have a set DH. Like, for instance, I'm just throwing out names. I haven't thought about who would be the best options to sign in free agency. But second base, Brandon Lau. He's a guy where he would give you a high caliber second base option. And with the DH spot open, you could play both him and Ozzy on an almost everyday basis until somebody got hurt and you were able to give somebody everyday playing time, right? Outfield, you could something cheap like Lane Thomas. You could bring in Lane Thomas and promise him 4 starts a week, provided the bat was there, because the DH spot is open. Drake Baldwin gets the other 2, which mean, and then if you still wanted to be able to rotate some stuff through, you could rotate a Ronald Acuna Jr. or Jurickson Profar through, give him half days off. Like, you have flexibility. Or you could go out and sign a true utility player. Willie Castro, traded from the Twins to the Cubs. He's a free agent. He's not great defensively anywhere, but he can play second, short, third, left, center. I think he's played some right. His arm's not the best for it, but you've got options there, right? You could get a utility guy, a true utility player, which they haven't really had, a starting caliber utility player, and get them in the lineup almost every day by rotating other options through. Maybe you probably don't take Matt Olson off of first base. You might not take Austin Riley off of third, but you can rotate Ozzy through. You can rotate Jurickson Profar through. You can rotate Ronald Acuna Jr. through. You can find ways to give guys days off, half days off, and get that utility guy in the lineup 4 or 5 times a week. And then when there's an injury, you can then turn around and say, okay, now you're the starting second baseman while Ozzy's out. You have flexibility without a set DH, and that's not something you get with Marcell Ozuna. Because you either have him on your bench not providing much of anything outside of that clubhouse presence, which is big, and a veteran pinch hit later in the game. He's not going to go in for as a defensive replacement. He's not going to go into pinch run for you. Those are your options, right? He can be a veteran pinch hitter, and he's a leader. That's what you get. Ultimately, I think what I would do were I the Braves, you can make a case for either way that makes sense. And I'm sure, let me know in the comments if you have thoughts on this and what you think Atlanta should do. I think personally, Marcell Ozuna's probably, or I think the most likely scenario, or the one that makes the most sense, let's do that, is a break glass in case of emergency option, right? Meaning, you explore a low-cost reunion with Marcell Ozuna, but you don't actually bring him in until close to spring training if you strike out on a lot of your other options in free agency, in the trade market, and all of that. Because here's the thing. There will be a market for Marcell Ozuna. When he's healthy, he's one of the better hitters in the National League. How big is that market going to be? And it's probably going to be all one-year deals. DHs of 35 or older rarely get more than 1 year. The last multi-year deal for a true DH of that age 2014, Nelson Cruz and Victor Martinez got multiple years. Baseball is a lot different now than it was 11 years ago. Going to be 12 years when you make this signing. And again, that doesn't count Shohei Ohtani. He does a lot of other stuff. That's not going to count what Kyle Schwarber's going to get this winter because he's legitimately a different caliber of hitter. He's also not 35. JD Martinez got 5 years from the Boston Red Sox in 2018, but there was an expectation he was going to play in the outfield. He had like 800 plus outfield innings the first couple of years of the deal. Marcell Ozuna has played 14 outfield innings the last 3 seasons. All of them came in the first week of 2023 before they took his glove away. Like, fun fact, Atlanta's opening day left fielder in 2023 was Marcell Ozuna. He played the first 7 innings. They lifted him in the 7-2 win against the Nationals. He started game 2 at DH and game 3 in left field. Played the entire game and then did not play defensively again the rest of his career. Like, he has not played an inning in a regular season game in the field since then. He played some first base in spring training last year, but that's it. So that's what I would do, right? I would keep Marcell Ozuna on the back burner as a fallback. And he's going to have to give you the hometown discount. But here's the thing. Even if he does go somewhere else, and Atlanta needs offense down the stretch next year, they could just go reacquire him at the trade deadline. He'll probably be on a 1-year deal. They did it for Adam Duvall in 2021. He was here. They let him leave to Miami. They traded for him at the deadline. They did it with Jorge Soler in 2024. They got him at the deadline last year and brought him back to provide some offense. Nothing says they can't do it with Marcell Ozuna too. In just a second, let's talk about this Mets series, this upcoming Mets series, because they're going through it right now, and Atlanta can put the nail in the coffin of their postseason hopes. We'll discuss that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about this Mets series. Starts tonight in Citi Field. One of those, there's no getaway day game, right? Thursday is still a 7:10 start, and then they fly to Cleveland. I guess it's not that far away, so they're cool with not having to play a day game there. Spencer Strider versus Clay Holmes in game 1. I'm really excited for this one. I'm a believer in some of these guys getting converted to the rotation. Clay Holmes was that guy. He was a reliever. He's now a starter. Carlos Carrasco versus David Peterson in game 2. Bryce Elder versus Kodai Senga in game 3. That one could be ugly. Senga struggled, left the game. He got in a lot of trouble in the 4th and left the game his last time out. Didn't make it through 5. And really, that's been the problem for the Mets in general recently, is the starters have not gone very deep in the games. So the bullpen's getting overworked. And because of that, because of the offense underperforming, they are just in a nightmare scenario right now. Starting the end of July, they went to San Diego for 3, and they came home for Giants, for Cleveland, and then they went to Milwaukee. They are 1-11. They got walked off twice. They lost 2 more games at home in extra innings. And it's just been a nightmare scenario for them, okay? The offense in that stretch, they're batting .201 with a .340 slug. It's a .621 OPS. Again, .201 average, .621 OPS. They've ground into 8 double plays. They've struck out 107 times. The offense is going through it. The pitching staff is going through it. The offense has scored under 4 runs a game. The pitching's allowed 6 runs a game. They've given up 16 homers. It's not been a lot of walks and stuff. They're only walking 3 guys a game. 3.2 walks per game in this stretch. They're striking out 8 guys per game. But they're also, just about every game, they're putting somebody on via a hit by pitch or a wild pitch. They've got 16 total combined hit by pitches and wild pitches in that stretch. They're not getting a ton of the double plays and things that they need. They've forced 4 double plays in that stretch. And the batting average allowed on balls in play is over 300 against New York. So it's a little bit of bad luck. But they are spiraling. And they've really been spiraling all summer. So At one point in time, I got to find the exact point. At one point in time, their division lead was like 5 games. They really, what was it? It was when they swept Washington in mid-June, their lead got as high as 5.5 games. And they are now, as of this morning, 5.5 games down. They have currently lost, I believe this is, I can't count these little things here. I believe they've lost 7 straight. It's their second 7-game losing streak of the season, which absolutely hurts. And Atlanta was part of that first one. They came to Atlanta and got swept by a bad Braves team in mid-June, right after that Washington series. They got swept by Tampa Bay at home. They came to Atlanta, they got swept. They went to Philly and lost 2 out of 3, and then they hosted Atlanta and split. The Braves are 5-2 against New York this season. This version of the Braves, this anemic version of the Braves, are 5-2 against the New York Mets. And that's when the New York Mets were doing well, right? They were division leaders or close to it when Atlanta played them. Now, granted, the flip side of that is some of your starters in these games. Strider started 2 of those games. You had Sale, you had Holmes, you had Schwellenbach. And this time, as we discussed, you don't have those guys. You have Carrasco and Elder in games 2 and 3. But, again, the Mets are going through it. The Mets are just really unable to get quality innings out of their starters. Some of this is some of these were bullpen games, right? Game 2 against Milwaukee was a bullpen game. They threw, it wasn't supposed to be, but it was. Reed Garrett opened, and then Frankie Montas went in and was bad. But Sean Manaea in the finale, I think he went 3 or 4 innings, right? Kodai Senga, again, didn't make it out of the 5th. David Peterson, I don't think made it out of the 4th or the 5th. A lot of these guys, they haven't had a pitcher complete 6 innings in a surprisingly long time. And I don't expect Atlanta starters to do that either, maybe except for Strider. But if you can get good enough outings from Carrasco and from Elder, this is a series, and the offense can keep doing what we saw them do, then Atlanta can just put the nail in the coffin here. Again, against the Marlins, the Braves hit almost 260 with an OPS in the 800s. They hit 10 homers in 5 games. They drove in 28. They scored 6.2 runs across that series. Again, the Milwaukee series wasn't great, but you can go back to the beginning of the Cincinnati, or actually, let's go back to the beginning of the Kansas City series. These last couple of weeks, they're hitting 250. They've hit 21 home runs in those 14 games. They've even stolen 8 bags. Atlanta's playing much better. We talked about this yesterday. They're playing much better after the All-Star break than they were before. And you could get Ronald Acuna Jr. back soon. We don't know about Austin Riley. Ronald Acuna Jr. is doing defensive drills. He played some infield. Don't read anything into that. That's just a thing a lot of guys do. But you could get Ronald Acuna Jr. back possibly in this series. Now, I doubt. I don't know if he traveled with the team or not to New York. But even the version of the Braves you have now is good enough to take down the Mets. And it would just be the most Mets thing ever to have a 5.5 game lead, talk a bunch of trash to everybody, and then just absolutely collapse down the stretch. Francisco Lindor hasn't been good. Juan Soto can only seem to get hits if there's nobody on base. Pete Alonso's cooled off. The pitching's a mess. The rotation's the big problem for them. This is legitimately a situation where it's just going to be a lot of schadenfreude for Mets fans because they talk so much trash to Braves fans on social media and everything. If the Braves go into New York and legitimately sweep this, I don't have very high expectations going into a lot of series. I just don't. This team's been bad enough this year where I just tend to feel like they're probably not going to get it done when it matters. But I feel surprisingly confident about this one. I don't know what it is, if it's just coming off of the high of beating Miami or what it is, but I feel surprisingly confident that Atlanta can go into New York and at least win the series. Put up some good at-bats, put up some big innings, get some decent pitching in at least maybe 2 of those games, and come away with some wins. And, I mean, I hope it happens. We'll see. Either way, I'll have a postcast after every game over at Locked On Sports Atlanta. We'll also have today's 3 things coming to you on bravestoday.com after every game. So subscribe, free or paid, it helps us out a ton. While you're doing all that stuff, do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. I love the words of affirmation we get on Apple. Those are always great. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and maybe tell a friend. We are so close to 5,000 subscribers. As of time of recording, we are at 4,991. And 5,000 just feels like one of those numbers that's kind of a big deal. It's really not, but it feels like it is. So if you do me a favor, send it to a friend, tell them to subscribe. We can get to 5,000, I'm pretty confident, by the end of the week. Until next time, for Bandit, I'm Lindsay Crosby. This has been Braves Today.